Right. For some reason, it's really odd. I can see Aaron on Blog TV, and I can't see him on Skype. But I'm told that our next guest, Matthew Chapman, is ready to come on. And because we've already left him waiting 10 minutes, I'm going to go straight into that call. Matthew Chapman, if you are not aware of, is the great-great-grandson of Charles Darwin. He is also a prolific writer and has recently directed the film The Ledge. He's also done an interview recently with Aaron Ra, which is on Aaron's channel. And hopefully that's a sufficient introduction, and we'll be able to see him soon. And hopefully he'll mute Blog TV so I don't have the embarrassment of hearing my voice.
Yes, Matt, good idea if you were to mute Blog TV.
What do I do?
Down in the lower right, there's a little symbol there that show you how to mute the Blog TV.
I'm not sure.
It should be to the right of where it says viewers.
It's probably under the button that says refresh. There's a
yes.
Yeah. Button that says refresh.
I don't have. You're talking about something down the bottom of the screen?
Yeah, you're looking at the screen the Blog TV screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're on Blog TV, then look at the refresh button. Just below that, there's a button to mute.
There.
There you go.
I think we've got that.
Okay, we're giving each other tech support, and boy, don't we need it.
Matthew Chapman, thank you very much indeed for coming along, and I'm very sorry for keeping you waiting. It's an absolute pleasure. You may recall that we did meet very briefly when Aaron and you had a conversation on Skype a couple of months ago now. As I was, I think you probably heard my introduction. I hope I didn't misrepresent you. I know that Aaron, there's all sorts of questions I have for you, but I'm going to ask Aaron to take over for a while because I'm sure that people are getting very sick of hearing me. Aaron.
Well, you know, that DPR Jones, as I told you a while back, was getting to be quite the old woman as he was trying to get everybody gathered together, get everybody to confirm and everything, and he couldn't reach you. And you told me it was because you were in some island off the coast of Brazil where there were no internet connection but plenty of mosquitoes. I'm sure there's a story in there.
Yeah, well, I have to say my visual thing is way behind. Is there a way of correcting that?
Don't watch Blog TV. Okay. There's a lag; it'll throw you off.
So if I go to just Skype, then I don't see myself at all.
Trust me, Matthew, we can see you. You're appearing on Skype.
Don't worry
and
about
Blog
watching
TV.
yourself.
Yeah, forget about looking at anything. Just concentrate on the audio.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Now, as I said, you can see scrolling text from the people in the Blog TV audience. If you want to, you can address some of the comments that you see there. You're welcome to, and I'm sure they'd love it. But don't look at yourself because the lag will throw yourself because you're looking at stuff that you just did 11 seconds ago, and it really is confusing.
That's not good.
Anyway, Brazil.
Yeah, well, I'm doing a rewrite of a screenplay about the American poet Elizabeth Bishop for a Brazilian director, and he happens to own an island just off the coast. So I was there. It was it was a spectacularly luxurious third world experience. Although, of course, Brazil now can hardly be described as third world because it seems to be actually doing better in terms of progress than the United States. So it's kind of an interesting country.
Okay. And you said you had no internet connection? I mean, were you in you said it was a third world environment. What do you mean by that?
Well, it was off the coast, so there was you get a cell phone signal from certain parts of the island,
mm-hmm.
but it was very iffy.
Iffy. Okay.
Matthew, if I remember correctly from the conversation that you had with her, your wife is Brazilian.
Yes.
Have you got a great affinity with Brazil, or is that just a consequence of meeting her?
Well, I mean, no, not really. I mean, I like it. It's a fun place to be, but I think it's interesting that some of Darwin's recollections of Brazil are kind of interesting.
Who?
But my interest as a writer really lies in America. I find America the most fascinating and peculiar country on earth. So that'll do for me.
When I was thinking about what topics I would like to talk to you with, that was actually one that I wanted to raise, because whilst everyone was sort of like saying, ask him what it's like to be Darwin's great-great-grandson, it's like, yeah, and then what? Am I supposed to say, does he like fossils as well or something? But I think it's much more productive to ask, obviously you're born and raised in United Kingdom, and I think it was not that long ago that you actually moved to America. What?
No, I've been here a long time. I've been here over 20 years.
Yeah, I was going to say it was 20 years in the
I'm, in
Union.
fact, I'm an American citizen.
You don't look old enough. But what are the main differences, the real differences between the culture and whatever that you noticed, and what do you miss from here and what do you appreciate over there?
Well, I'd say like the first difference really, and it's sort of relevant to all of us guys, is that the church, the religion does not play a role in politics to nearly the same extent as here. And yet I would say that the general kind of attitude to the role of government is more Christian in a way than in America. I mean, there is a real sense that as a people you elect a government that that takes care of those who are weaker than you, and I would say that would be a typically Christian value. It's just religion just doesn't play such a part in England at all, and I don't think people are afraid of it. I was listening to the gentleman who was on before me talking about, what he had to do at Christmas, and I can't imagine that happening in England.
No, I think that's right, and I think it's very difficult for people like myself to fully understand what the likes of our own have to go through. And when I hear accounts that are given to me by people I've met through YouTube, Blog TV and the like, where they say they dare not even admit to being an atheist for fear of losing their job. I mean, that is something I can't get my head around.
I've heard that a lot, yeah. I've heard that a lot, and I'm sure Aaron would know this very well, but if you leave the coasts and you go inwards, you find a lot of communities that are, in one way or another, socially dominated by religion. I mean, I wrote a book about the Kitzmiller v. Dover trial, which was, the story of this group of fundamentalists who took over a school board in Pennsylvania and tried to have creationism, they called it intelligent design eventually, taught in school alongside evolution. And I got to know the town fairly well, and there was, no question about it that that an atheist would not feel comfortable in that community at all. And people definitely didn't talk about it. In fact, people talked to me about it because I was an oddity, but it was kind of in hushed tones, and I found it rather depressing, actually.
When you say they talked to you because you were an oddity, was it out of sort of like genuine curiosity as to your beliefs, or was it just like, we've never come across one of these folk before? Or it's a curious way that you expressed it.
Yeah, well, being English in Pennsylvania to begin with, being Darwin's great-great-grandson, which somehow got out. I remember actually talking to the writer Tom Wolfe, who's a terrific writer who wrote Bonfire of the Vanities, and he wears this white suit always. And I asked him if he did this because it would sort of make him seem so odd to people that they felt they could share things with him because he just sort of wasn't on the same planet as them. And I think to an extent that happens with me. Being out there, I think people are more candid because they know that I'm not part of the community. I'm not like a regular American. And that people are I find people very candid. And I always find it very touching, actually, how honest people are. If you
you said that you find it candid, but I recall from the conversation that we recorded with Aaron that one example of this candor was someone saying that you were going to burn in hell because you happen to have the same blood. Do you want to explain? Maybe some people haven't seen that video. Do you want to explain what that was all about?
Well, I mean, I've had that said to me many times, but in Pennsylvania, it was a guy called Reverend Groves, who was this wiry little guy. And he invited me to his church to go and talk and to be interviewed by him. And I was interviewing him also for a BBC documentary that never quite came together. And I asked him, what he thought about Darwin. And he said that Darwin was essentially the devil. I mean, he said if he wasn't the devil, he was the spawn of the devil. And that he was responsible for Stalin, for Pol Pot, for Hitler, abortion, gay sex. I mean, it really got out there. And then he said, looked at me quite calmly and said, and you too will, you will burn in hell. And the relaxed way in which people will tell you this, with a sort of strange lack of concern. If I really believed that stuff, and I thought that someone I was looking at was going to suffer in that way, I don't see how one can be so calm about it. But they are. So.
The judgments made against non-believers, especially here in Texas, are extreme. One person I know was seeking legal counsel and was in a extremely Christian community in Texas and asked, do you have a problem representing an atheist? And the lawyer responded that he didn't particularly have a problem with that because he has, as a defense attorney, already represented child molesters and drug dealers and people of that sort. So an atheist was not a big deal to him.
But sort of in the same category.
Exactly. That's the mindset. We are frequently accused of causing damage, spiritual damage or psychological damage by preaching the belief system that there is no God.
Yeah.
The way that people view non-belief there's no kind of rationality behind it, because there's no kind of rationality in the way that they have adopted their belief system to begin with. But the judgments that they bring against us are quite extreme. Yeah. And it's such a curiosity to hear you say that in England you don't have this prevailing thing in your culture, because the few Englishmen that I talk to often express the problems that they have with other religious people in their communities. And everyone in my surrounding community is religious. I mean, just deeply.
Right.
And none of these people have ever questioned it. They are conditioned since childhood to react violently when they encounter a non-believer or even a person of a different faith. I took my kids to a Krishna temple and just want to expose them to different belief systems, different cultures, different ideas, expand them as much as I possibly can. And we stop in a grocery store at some point thereafter, and there's an incense thing that has Krishna on it. And I pointed out to my kids, look, there's a picture of Krishna. Someone else in the grocery line here in Texas doesn't understand who the blue guy with 4 arms is, and so I have to explain. And she shuts me up immediately, says, if it ain't from Jesus, it's of the devil.
Yeah, well, that's definitely the attitude. Where in Texas are you?
I'm in Dallas area.
Okay.
Matthew, going back to one of the points, which I think sort of like follows on to a degree, One of the issues that you mentioned a few months ago was in relation to medical care. And what I find it extraordinary, obviously, you'll be familiar with the National Health Service in this country, which I'm not saying is a perfect system, but it is something that basically looks after everyone. And as you will be well aware, any government or political party going into an election saying that we're going to cut the budget of the NHS or get rid of the NHS is committing political suicide. We're not that religious over here. In America, which apparently is incredibly religious and loving and caring, because they all worship this loving and caring God, they don't seem to have a great deal of respect for their fellow citizens. That seems to be a contradiction that I've never got my head around.
It's very peculiar, and I mean, people who have these attitudes, if you look at the way they run their lives individually and within their own community, I mean, I'm sure a lot of them are very charitable, but there seems to be like a disconnect between the process of democratically electing someone to represent you and then having them do your bidding, and the whole process of government is the will of the people. There seems to be such cynicism about government and politics in America that there's this big disconnect. You may elect someone to do this, but you're not going to get what you want, so you may as well give up. You know, they're bought and paid for before they get there, I guess a lot of people feel. And so...
That's definitely how I feel.
Sorry?
That's definitely how I feel.
Yeah, well, I mean...
And it's also a sentiment that I've heard a lot of other people express. You know, what is the point of trying to do anything, because, you know, the institutions, such as the medical insurance institutions and the like, they've got too much lobbying power. We're never going to be able to do anything about it. And I think that is a terrible attitude to have. It's so fatalistic. But is that something that you've come across in America?
Oh, very much so, yeah. And I think that you could solve, I don't know, 90% of all American problems if you simply extracted money from the process, and probably extracted a little time, too. I mean, as you know, in England, we elect the government, and I think it's the whole campaign is 6 weeks. Well, in America, it's in a presidential election, it's 2 or 3 years sometimes of this process of raising money and so on and so forth. And it's an incredible waste of money and time and energy. In fact, I heard someone on TV, one of Obama's people, saying it's just an exhaustion. You're trying to govern the country, but you're also having to defend yourself and try and, you know, it's too much money and too much time in a time when, you know, when you have TV, you could actually learn just about everything you needed to know about the candidates all over the country in 6 weeks, as we do in Britain. And this lengthy, expensive process, I think people find it draining. I think they find it disappointing. I think they feel that their candidates are being bought, that they can't move when they get to Washington because they've been, you know, they've received so much money from so many people. It's a system that's screwed up, I think, and it's.
May I throw in something in here? I mean,
yeah.
We seem to have a scale. On the one side, we have where people are trying to elect somebody that is reasonable, somebody that is intelligent, somebody that is going to make rational decisions, and when we can't get our candidate out there and actually have him have a chance, we may vote for a change we can believe in, and then find that years later Guantanamo Bay is not only still open, but our current president is sending people to there. So, I mean, did not do any of the things that we'd elected him to do. So there's that frustration. There's where we feel like, oh, we still have all the same people and the same programs that were erected by Bush that we thought would have been canceled or ended or reversed. They have not been. And so we feel like we have the same hand. It's just a different puppet on the same hand. It's very frustrating for me. And then look who we have to be the front runners. the least intelligent people you can imagine. I mean, Bachman, Palin, and Perry. You know, and when did stupidity become the criteria for leadership? I have to continuously ask myself this. When people cheer at this guy who has killed hundreds of people under his administration while not affecting the crime rate, because statistically, those states that have the death penalty also have a higher rate of murder. Why is that? We're obviously, this is not a deterrent. And when some of the people that you kill are innocent people, and I don't see the justification. We're not basing our decisions to vote, to elect, on the criteria of their past performance. We're basing it on their presentation, their religious beliefs, and whatever idiotic thing he said on a stage at one moment, and to hell with what he did over the last 10 years.
Yeah, no, well, it's frustrating. And to go to the death penalty thing, I actually did a lot of research on that once for a film I was writing, and there was even, I found, some evidence that around the time of an execution, if it was a high-profile execution, there could be a slight increase in violent crime, and absolutely not a deterrent. And also, interestingly enough, not a satisfying outcome for the victim's family, because you have a choice of either having a series of lengthy appeals so that innocent people do not get executed, or you risk executing innocent people. So we do have a series of lengthy appeals, generally speaking. So for the victims' families, when you meet them, you will find that the ones who have endured the sort of 10, 20-year process of waiting for their monster to be executed are in much worse shape than those who had the murderer convicted and sent away for life, which takes very little time at all, and there are very few appeals because the guy's still alive, and so it's not so serious. So it just seemed to me a completely futile thing. And in England, we got rid of it 50 years ago.
A little bit more than 50 years, yes. But it's interesting that this topic actually came up, I think, within the last week or so in California, where there is a proposal to get rid of the death penalty. And one of the proponents of that was a former prison governor who came up with a very lucid argument. And you'd think that this would be one that would be attractive to Americans because it was purely financial. The cost of keeping someone on death row and subsequently executing them, I think the figure was something like $3 billion extra was spent going through the process of executing people for the end result of 13 people actually got executed. And it worked out at like $300 million per person that was executed. And from a purely economical point of view, it's batshit crazy. And I agree with you. I've also looked into it. So far as a deterrent aspect is concerned, it is an absolute non-starter. I do not see any justification whatsoever for the death penalty. And as you say, fortunately, we got rid of it 50 plus years ago.
I understand the want for vengeance when some woman murders her own children in a particularly grisly way. Like Susan Smith, who drowned her children in a car while they were pleading with her to let her out of the window as the car sank into the waves, and then she blamed it on a black man so that she can get out. What did she do this for? She did this so she could party, right? How base is that? If anybody is worth killing, surely it's that bitch, right? I understand the want of vengeance when you encounter somebody like that, but I'm with you on a higher moral level. I don't see the justification of killing a human being regardless. There is no ill effect for locking somebody like that away and taking away their freedoms. So, okay, she still eats and she still breathes. That doesn't bother me so much. She's at least out of everything, out of society, out of the gene pool forever. and this is where she needs to be. And then we had this other girl recently that got off of her charges and is back in the public, and it's a monstrous thought to me that she might marry and reproduce again one day. That, again, I'm mystified at that too. But I'm going to have to stay on the higher ground. I don't believe in killing people. And I'll just leave it at that.
I have a horrible feeling, can I just pause you there? I have a horrible feeling that at the very least we have frozen on Blog TV. Can anyone on Blog TV tell me, can you still hear us? I have a horrible feeling that the call has dropped. I'm not getting anything at the moment.
I can see you guys.
Yeah, this is par for the course. You're still moving. Somebody...
we stopped moving on Blog TV about 5 minutes ago. Oh,
yeah,
no, it looks like we're back on Blog TV. Let me just check. Can people hear us on Blog TV now? Are we back? Quick thumbs up if you can hear us on Blog TV. Honestly, Matthew, we spent a month or so trying to sort out the technical problems to make sure that this program ran smoothly, seamlessly, and unfortunately...
Yeah, unfortunately, we've been doing this for months. We've been doing this kind of show in this kind of format. Why I don't know why. Today?
Aaron, I don't know why.
I'm not asking you, sir. I'm just saying it's impressive.
Fucking dude,
we had this down, so and it had run very successfully, again and again and again.
I know.
What's the solution to the problem?
I don't know.
Well, we could throw money at it.
No, but I mean, could we all re-sign back in?
Matthew, I'm getting messages from the person that's responsible for it in America, and he did say if it crashes again, he's going to get someone else to start hosting the whole thing. So I imagine, hopefully, I will get a message from him, and we'll be able to restart the whole thing. I apologise because obviously we're losing time. I am going to take this opportunity to pop to the bathroom, though, because otherwise I'm just going to start ranting and swearing. Please excuse me for 2 minutes.
Okay. Might as well do the same thing.